The sharp crack of a hand striking flesh echoed through the grand marble lobby. Golden chandeliers swayed faintly above as silence swept over the crowd. Gasps and murmurs filled the air. A man in a tailored navy suit, the hotel's manager, stood rigid with fury, his hand still raised. Before him was a woman in a simple beige trench coat, her cheek burning red, but her eyes cold and unwavering. No one in the room knew who she was, yet. To most, she appeared like any other guest, maybe even less. Someone dismissed, underestimated, and disrespected. But the truth was far more shocking. The woman he had just slapped wasn't just another visitor. She was the billionaire who owned the hotel he managed. And in that single moment, his entire career, reputation, and life would unravel before everyone's eyes. Before we continue, let me ask you this. Have you ever been underestimated, judged unfairly because of how you look, what you wear, or where people think you belong? Stick with this story, because by the end, you'll see why you should never judge someone by appearances. It had been a busy afternoon in the lobby of the Grand Aurelius Hotel. Guests streamed in with luggage carts, business travelers checked emails on their phones, and families admired the golden chandeliers that glittered above polished marble floors. At the reception desk, a line had formed. The manager, Richard Hale, stood tall behind the counter, overseeing his staff. Richard was known for his arrogance, sharp suit, slick hair, and a sense of superiority that dripped from every word he spoke. To him, the hotel wasn't about hospitality, it was about prestige. And he carried himself as though he owned the place, even though he was just an employee. That afternoon, a woman walked into the lobby. Her presence wasn't loud or attention-grabbing. She wore a beige trench coat, her hair neatly tied back, and she carried only a small leather purse. No designer logos flashed, no entourage followed, no expensive jewelry glittered under the lights. This was Amara Blake, billionaire entrepreneur, visionary investor, and the undisputed owner of the entire Grand Aurelius chain. But no one in the lobby knew that, not yet. Amara had a habit of visiting her properties in disguise. She believed the only way to truly know how her hotels were run was to walk in as a guest without announcing who she was. And so, to Richard, she was just another face. Amara approached the reception desk. She waited patiently, but when her turn came, Richard barely looked at her. He glanced at her coat, her simple purse, then shifted his attention to the man behind her in a tailored suit, carrying expensive luggage. "Yes, sir, how can I help you?" Richard said smoothly, skipping Amara entirely. The man behind her frowned and pointed. "She was in line before me." Richard sighed, clearly annoyed. He turned his gaze back to Amara and said curtly, "Do you even have a reservation here?" Amara met his stare calmly. "Yes." Under the name Blake, Richard typed carelessly into the system, his fingers tapping with impatience. He didn't offer the warm greetings he gave to other guests. Instead, his tone dripped with irritation. "And do you have a credit card on file? Because we require one. We can't have unexpected issues." The insinuation was clear. He was judging her, assuming she didn't belong, assuming she couldn't afford the stay. A hush fell over the line of guests as some began to notice the tone he was using. Amara simply smiled faintly. "Check again. Blake." Richard's irritation grew. He leaned forward. "Listen, ma'am. This is a luxury hotel. We don't tolerate loitering. If you can't provide a card right now, I'll have to ask you to leave." Amara's patience was steady, but her silence only seemed to inflame him further, and then it happened. Richard stepped out from behind the desk. His voice rose, echoing through the lobby. "Get out of my hotel!" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Guests stopped in their tracks. Staff froze, wide-eyed, and before anyone could intervene, Richard slapped her. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. Amara didn't stumble. She didn't cry out. She stood tall, her eyes locked onto his, calm, steady, unflinching. For a moment, no one breathed. The entire lobby froze, as though time itself had stopped. Guests clutched their luggage, children stared wide-eyed, and even the concierge dropped her pen mid-note. Richard's hand trembled slightly, the weight of his action hanging in the air, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. He straightened, trying to mask his uncertainty with arrogance. "You people think you can just walk in anywhere and demand service?" He sneered loudly, ensuring the whole lobby could hear. Gasps and whispers erupted among the crowd. "Did he just say that?" a woman muttered under her breath. A businessman nearby pulled out his phone, already recording. Amara, still calm, lifted her chin. Her eyes, sharp, steady, unshaken, locked on Richard's. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't retaliated, hadn't flinched. And somehow, that quiet strength unsettled him more than any outburst could have. "Are you finished?" Amara asked softly, her voice carrying through the silence. Richard scoffed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "I'll have security escort you out. You're disturbing my guests." But before he could snap his fingers for the guards, another voice cut through the air. "Sir, maybe you should check the reservation again." It was one of the junior receptionists, her voice trembling as she glanced nervously at the screen in front of her. "The name Blake, it's flagged with executive status." Richard shot her a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Stay out of this," he barked, but whispers spread quickly. Guests began murmuring, "Blake? Did she say Blake? Wait, Amara Blake? The hotel tycoon? No, it can't be." Amara calmly reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek black card. She placed it on the counter, the gold lettering catching the light. Amara Blake Holdings. The junior receptionist gasped. She covered her mouth, eyes wide. Even the concierge at the far end leaned forward, recognizing the name immediately. Richard's face began to pale, but he still clung to denial. This could be fake. Anyone could... The junior receptionist quickly typed again, her hands shaking. The system confirmed it. The reservation wasn't just for a guest. It was marked under owner's account. The crowd grew louder, whispers turning into shocked exclamations. Phones captured every second. Amara finally spoke, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the noise. "My name is Amara Blake. I own this hotel, and every property under the Grand Aurelius brand." The words fell like a hammer. The crowd erupted in gasps. Guests who had been filming zoomed in on her face, eager to capture the moment. Staff members glanced at one another, horrified. Richard stumbled back, the color draining from his cheeks. His arrogance crumbled in an instant, replaced by pure fear. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Amara didn't yell, she didn't insult. She simply looked at him with the kind of authority that didn't need volume to command respect. "You've not only disrespected a guest," she said slowly, "you've disrespected your employer. Worse, you've humiliated this hotel and every staff member who actually understands what hospitality means." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard tried to stammer out an apology. "Miss Blake, I didn't... If I had known..." Amara raised a hand to stop him. "That's the problem. You treat people based on what you think you know about them. You judged me on my coat, my purse, my silence. You thought power looked like a designer suit. You thought respect had to be earned by appearances. But respect is something you give to every person, without question." The crowd broke into murmurs of approval. A few even clapped softly. Richard's face burned red, not from pride now, but from humiliation. He glanced desperately toward the security guards, but they weren't moving. They were staring at him, waiting for her command. Amara's tone sharpened, though it never lost its calm. "You are relieved of your duties, effective immediately." The words struck him harder than any slap ever could. Security stepped forward at once. Richard panicked, his voice cracking. "Wait, please, I can explain. I was protecting the hotel's reputation. I didn't know who you were." Amara's eyes didn't waver, and that's why you'll never stand in this lobby again, because protecting this hotel's reputation doesn't mean protecting marble floors and chandeliers. It means protecting the dignity of the people who walk through these doors. The guests erupted into applause. Phones captured Richard being escorted out, his protests echoing uselessly. His once commanding figure looked small now, diminished under the weight of his own arrogance. As Richard was dragged out of the lobby, his voice echoed down the marble halls, half apologies, half excuses. But no one listened anymore. Guests turned their backs, whispering about the scandal they had just witnessed. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others clapped louder, applauding Amara for standing her ground with such quiet power. The moment the doors closed behind him, the lobby seemed to exhale. The junior receptionist, still pale, turned to Amara. "Miss Blake, I'm so sorry you experienced that. We didn't know." Amara placed a gentle hand on the young woman's shoulder. "You don't need to apologize. You treated me with respect, and that's what matters. It's not about knowing who I am. It's about knowing who you are when you serve others." The young woman's eyes filled with tears, not of shame but of pride. She nodded firmly. Amara then turned, not to leave, but to face the entire lobby. Dozens of guests were still there, some filming, others waiting to hear what she would say. "Let me make something clear," she began, her voice steady. "This hotel is not mine because my name is on the paperwork. It belongs to every guest who walks in here expecting respect, every staff member who pours their heart into service, and every person who believes hospitality means dignity." The room fell silent, listening intently. Even the children stopped fidgeting. No guest should ever fear being humiliated. No worker should fear being silenced. And no manager should believe they're above the values that define this hotel. Applause broke out again, louder this time. Some guests stood, clapping with admiration. The staff members, inspired, nodded in agreement. In the days that followed, Amara launched a sweeping change across the Aurelius brand. She introduced a global respect and dignity program, a training initiative designed not to teach manners, but to instill empathy. Every staff member, from receptionists to executives, would undergo training that emphasized one principle. Every human being deserves respect, regardless of appearance, wealth, or status. Word of the incident spread quickly. The viral video circulated online, sparking debates about customer service, prejudice, and humility. But far from damaging her hotels, it elevated them. Guests began praising the Aurelius chain for taking bold action. Bookings soared, not because of luxury, but because of trust. As for Richard, his career in hospitality ended that day. He had built a reputation on arrogance, and it crumbled in one moment of cruelty. But perhaps, Amara hoped, even he would learn the lesson in time. 1 week later, Amara returned to the same lobby. This time, she didn't wear a plain trench coat. She came openly as herself, greeted by staff who smiled warmly, not out of fear, but out of respect. As she checked in, the junior receptionist handed her keycard with both hands, her voice steady and proud. "Welcome back, Miss Blake. It's an honor to have you with us." Amara smiled. "It's an honor to be here. And remember, every guest deserves to feel the same." The staff nodded, the message sinking in deeper than any policy manual ever could. And so, the story of one slap became more than just a viral headline. It became a reminder. Don't judge people by appearances. Don't measure worth by clothing, wallets, or assumptions. Respect costs nothing, but it can change everything, because you never know who you're speaking to. More importantly, you never know the battles they've faced, the value they carry, or the impact they could have on your life. If this story moved you, take a second to think. How do you treat people when no one's watching? Do you lead with kindness or with judgment? If you believe respect should be universal, hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and make sure to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.